Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to Geeks Watch. Today I want to talk about The Witcher Season 1, which I finally got around to watching. There are at least 4 or 5 seasons out by now, and I'm just watching it now. So, Season 1 is essentially, well, it's the story of Geralt of Rivera, who is a Witcher. Witchers are people who have been somewhat transformed with the use of magic and herbs in becoming monster hunters. They grant some special abilities, enhanced strength, enhanced healing, enhanced senses, things of that nature. So they don't look quite human, and because of that, people don't really trust them all that much. There is some prejudice against Witchers, although people will usually try and, if there's a monster around that needs killing, they will try and find a Witcher to do the job. So the season 1 is about, it introduces us to Geralt, does the world building, gives us some backstory of Geralt, and tells us what kind of person he is. He is a man who is practical but also honorable, although not everyone sees that. We're also introduced to the Princess Ciri. There's something special about her. We're not sure exactly what it is at the start of the series, start of the season. And even finishing the season, I'm still not quite sure what it is about her that makes her special. We're introduced to the Brotherhood of Mages, somewhat through Geralt and somewhat through the third character of the season, the sorceress Yennefer. We see her origins as a young woman with some physical deformities who has some latent magical abilities, who was then recruited to join the Brotherhood and is trained in the use of sorcery. She eventually, with the use of magic, is transformed into a beautiful young woman. And the three of these characters, their fates are interwoven. The Kingdom of Nilfgaard is on the march to war. They're subjugating, basically they're after Sintra, which is where Ciri is from. Her grandmother is the Lion Queen. So they're intent on sacking the city. And they're intent on capturing Ciri for some reason. Like I said, we don't know exactly what's special about her. And the timeline of the story bounces back and forth. As the first episode opens, we're at, I think it opens with the attack on the capital of Sintra, where Ciri escapes to try and find Geralt. But like I said, it bounces back and forth. Over the course of, depending which character, Yennefer's character goes through at least 30 years time frame, if not longer. Because she's a sorceress, she doesn't age. Actually, it's one of my complaints is that nobody really seems to age in this show, when how much time has passed. Although it's learned that that magic users and witchers don't age as quickly as normal people. Witchers live to be 150 to 200 years old. Magic users like sorcerers and wizards can live to be 300 or more. So them not aging kind of makes sense, but none of the other characters seem to age either. It also is confusing when people who we think something has happened to show up later completely fine. It's like, oh no, wait, they jumped back in time another decade, so we don't know. It was confusing at times. But having said that, it was still a lot of fun to watch. The world building was good. It was kind of over the top and corny in places. And I think the pacing dragged a bit. And there was I think episode 7 was kind of like a filler episode, kind of backfilled. Episode 7 was like filling in the timelines, the gaps that we kind of tying all the timelines together. I did find some interesting things about The Witcher, knew nothing about it until I started watching it. Really, it was originally a novel by a Polish author, and it's based on some of the stuff is based on Polish folklore. I being a lifelong fan of fairy tales and folklore, I like the author's interpretation of some of the European folklore that he's using. It's not a one-to-one translation, but I enjoyed seeing some of the folklore stuff that that he threw in there. Witcher is in Polish the male, I think it's Wiccan, as opposed to, in the original Polish, Witcher is the male form of the term of witch. So that's where the author got that. It was popular in Poland, was translated into hundreds of languages across the globe, became very popular in the United States, had a series of like several books, which was then made into a video game. Henry Cavill, who plays Geralt, huge fan of the books. I've seen interviews with him he was the person on set who corrected everyone about the lore because he was super passionate about it. He was a super Witcher lore nerd. Another thing I admired about the show was the use of practical effects. Not to say that they did not use CGI, because they did, but the use of practical effects were really good. And I always prefer the practical effects when they can be done well. Although there are limits to practical effects. It's hard to make something non-human move naturally or look like it's supposed to be moving naturally when it's, practical effects. We've gotten used to CGI doing everything and making everything look normal, so to speak, watching things move in a more realistic fashion. So pros and cons, pros and cons. But I see why people talked about it and see why it was well received. It was a lot of fun to watch. And I'll certainly have to watch season 2. Here's what I want to nitpick about this. Pretty much gone over the things that kind of annoyed me. There were some pacing issues, I think. Sometimes I think I've mentioned this already, the acting was kind of over the top and cheesy. I felt there were some character inconsistencies as well. Yennefer the Sorceress, I think she's inconsistent. Her behavior is inconsistent. She'll be noble and kind in one minute, and then another scene she'll be bitter and cynical and kind of a jerk. Geralt has a couple of moments like that too, and then Princess Ciri. Yeah. Some of her stuff was inconsistent as well. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but there's times where like things happen because the story needed them to happen, not because it essentially made sense for them to happen. There's a handful of moments here and there, which kind of bugged me. But still in all, it's good for a season, and I am very interested in what's going to happen in season 2, because season 1 ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, which kind of makes sense given the story arc they're going on. You wouldn't want to resolve the whole thing all at once. I can easily see how it might resolve in season 2, but I have no idea where they're going to go after that. But yeah, we definitely need to resolve things with Ciri, resolve things with Yennefer and Geralt. There are lots of other side characters too that I'd really like to find out what happens with them. Some of the Brotherhood of Mages, that type of thing. The bad guys, I want to find out what's going on with them. Nothing else to say, I guess. This is a short one, which is weird because after 8 episodes, you'd think I had more to talk about, but I guess I just covered my talking points very quickly. Anyhow, that's all there is to it. As always, thanks for watching. As always, my stuff is crap. And until next time, good hunting.